Alright, so it seems like every couple of months, or maybe about every year or so, I end up making a video where I go over a lot of Asphalt's modern problems, quirks, little balance problems, and you guessed it, this video is no different. However, I'm going to call these things petty grievances. These are all the little annoying quirks and little minor issues that I've noticed within the past couple of months of playing Asphalt Legends that all sort of add up to the point where I wanted to make a video going over them for you guys today and start a conversation about how these things can be fixed. So none of these things are deal breakers or game breaking or so bad to the point where I need to yell and scream at the top of my lungs, but I just felt the need to talk about some of these things and hopefully bring it to Gameloft's attention. So as always, I am curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Are there any little details or small things that you've been noticing that have just sort of grinded your gears that you want to talk about? Let me know in the comment section below, and also below this video you'll find the description box where you can find some links to my social media channels, including my Instagram where I have some cool car photography content, and of course you are free to join my Discord server where I hang out and chat with all of you guys. So let's get into what I'm gonna call petty grievances. Alrighty, so first up on my list of petty grievances are all of the little things going on with the cars in Asphalt Legends, and I got a couple of points here. That's why I'm sort of clumping them all together. And first off is the car ranks and sort of the performance that goes along with it. Now, for example, why in the world is the Lamborghini Temerario ranked higher than the Revuelto? I can see why they might be close to each other because performance of modern cars is getting ever so slightly closer and closer in terms of, you know, the base model cars versus the higher end cars and whatnot. But historically speaking, the normal entry-level Lamborghini has always played significantly worse than the flagship Lamborghini. Like in many games over the past decade, the Huracan has never been quite as good as the Aventador, but in Asphalt Legends, the Revuelto in some cases is worse than the Temerario, and they're actually ranked right next to each other. Why in the world is this happening? Now, this isn't the biggest issue like I've been saying about all of these points, but another example is that the Ferrari F40, one of the most legendary cars of all time, is actually a pretty useful C-Class car, but the F50, another legendary Ferrari car, is ranked at the bottom of the barrel in B-Class, and I've never seen it been played in multiplayer in a very, very long time, yet I see the F40 all over the place. Now, one fix that I could potentially see the developers making to ease this problem is if they got rid of that 10-mile-per-hour top speed buff and the Nitro is changed. Now, historically, in every other Asphalt game, the Nitro upgrade also increased the actual top speed with Nitro, whereas in Asphalt Legends, it seems like almost every single car, with of course the exception of the perfect Nitro boost, goes about 10 miles per hour over what their normal top speed is. So if the developers could choose the final top speed of all the cars instead of having the arbitrary 10-mile-per-hour limit, it could add another layer of balance instead of balancing all the other stats around purely the car's factory top speed. This could give the developers a lot more room to play with. So this has been slightly better because in the recent versions of the multiplayer seasons, the cars have not been classed together based on well class. They've been put together based on the performance that Gameloft deems in terms of how they play in multiplayer. So in terms of the actual rank and how it is positioned in the class structure, this problem hasn't been as big as it used to be. However, if a car that should be better than another car in real life is ranked below it, it still affects my view of the status of the car, or as the kids would say, the aura of the car, if it's either useless or, like I said, ranked below an obviously worse car. Next up, I'm gonna mention it, the engine sounds are still kind of garbage in this game. I know it's a lot of work to redo the engine sounds in a game, particularly because the expectations are now way higher with other games such as Forza and Gran Turismo. They go well into depth and detail, so I don't really expect individual engine sounds for every single car, and personally I wouldn't really care because I don't pay that close attention to it, but I do feel like the sounds could be a little more visceral, maybe louder, or just a little more dynamic compared to what they currently are. For example, the Asphalt 8 engine sounds are very wrong, and we all know that, but we still enjoy them because they sound so much better anyway. Next up, and this sort of ties into my first point about class rank, and that is the S-class balancing and the fact that I think there should be now a split between an S1 subclass and an S2 subclass. If you want to learn more about my thoughts about that sort of of balancing problem, you can check out my previous video about Legend League, where I talk about how the Arish Imperium and the Devil 16 are obviously way better compared to a majority of the S-Class cars, and we've even seen, like previously mentioned, some of the cars have now been put in Platinum League, like the Regera and the Speedtail, because they don't match the highest end of S-Class cars. So again, it goes back to car rank and how the cars actually perform in the game, but it also still affects my status and view of the car in my brain, and I do feel like that S-Class could use a little bit of a rework, especially at that higher top end. Like I said, the Devil 16, the Arish Imperium, and any of those new crazy cars that are coming down the line in future Drive Syndicates. Alright, stepping away from cars for a second, because I know I talked a lot about that, but what is an Asphalt legend? Like, I don't think it's properly defined in the game. Of course, we have things that you can measure yourself by. Of course, we have Legend League, which is a good example. We have the garage level, we have leaderboards, but it still feels like the Asphalt legend, the concept of being a legend, is still a little arbitrary or a little fake. It doesn't feel like there's a true definition of what that actually means, because of course there is no story. We do have the Drive Syndicate type thing, but it never really felt like that connected to the whole being a legend. It felt like the Drive Syndicate versus the Syndicate and security issue has been a separate thing compared to being a legend. So I feel like if there was more emphasis placed on a storyline, that could be better. Now, I know they're sort of straying away from that. As we've seen, they have started to scale back the actual story in Drive Syndicate. I mean, we actually don't really have any text now for the story in the recent Drive Syndicates, but I want there to be a better definition of what an Asphalt legend is. Again, a very, very petty type of grievance, but all of the other subtitles in the Asphalt history has corresponded to gameplay changes or very significant changes, like being airborne with ramps in Asphalt 8 and the adrenaline Nitro type from Asphalt 6 and Asphalt 7, so it just feels like being a legend still doesn't quite make sense as an official subtitle. It feels like there needs to be something more. Alright, now I think it's time to talk about events. Now, I had a video titled The Spotlight Problem where I went over some of the details about the first Spotlight event we had, but I want to talk about special events in general. Of course, some of these points do qualify for issues with the Spotlight as well. But I don't understand why we don't have an autoplay feature for the special events. We have them for the showroom, we have them for car hunts, but I still think it would be a good idea to introduce them to special events, because if we can show that we can complete all conditions in one stage, it's almost insulting that it requires us to play the same race 5 times in a row to keep getting those rewards and complete conditions. So again, this also applies to Spotlight races. If we show that we can in fact get the 150 coins required for a certain condition, if we can prove that we have the skill to do it, why can't we exchange tickets for the auto completion of races in both Spotlight events and normal special events? This has nothing to do with pay to win balance or garage levels or getting cars or it's just so like difficult to get cars nowadays. It's purely time. Why can't I just skip it? I don't want to play the same race over and over and over again. It's a little insulting. Yes, that was the norm of many games about 5 to 10 years ago in the mobile space, but nowadays, like I've said, it's almost insulting. Can we just skip races if we've already showed that we can complete all of the conditions? Now, speaking of quality of life problems and the fact that this game is now much bigger than just a simple mobile game, it's now on PC and console, we should expect PC and console level of, well, quality of life features. For example, where is my skip track button in the music? Why can't I skip music tracks that I don't like? We've had this in, I think, every single Asphalt version before, except for this one. And now that we have many more Asphalt tracks, I feel like we should be able to skip the music we don't want to listen to. It's normal that racing games have this. With any soundtrack, the players are going to prefer certain things, and in fact, many other games like Need for Speed have the ability to filter tracks based on the genre. We've had this in Asphalt 8 and Asphalt Extreme. It's especially useful now that we have more and more music tracks than ever before, and of course, I would like a streamer mode where I can cancel out all of the copyrighted soundtracks and only listen to the Gameloft developed ones just for my YouTube channel, and it makes streaming a lot easier because that way I don't have to deal with a personalized downloaded playlist that I play in the background. I can just keep playing whatever is on in game. Last but certainly not least, give us a better garage. I don't think this was really that big of an improvement. I've already mentioned this in a couple of videos, but in every other Asphalt game, we've had a 3D environment. We've had buildings, structures, maybe a glass in the background, a window that shows us into the outside world, something to connect us from the garage to the environment in the game, and we don't have that in Asphalt Legends. We just have that big LED screen that, in my opinion, isn't even being used to its full potential. Why not showcase creator videos or different pictures, screenshots that people take in the game, maybe update them based on the special event that you're going into? But I think it changes based on your multiplayer rating and a couple of other little things, but that's about it. It really feels like the garage is still a little underwhelming. Alright guys, so I know that was a little bit of a longer video, just sort of me yapping back and forth on some of the issues in Asphalt Legends, but again, these are all little things that just sort of add up to get a little annoying. It doesn't mean that any of these things are game breaking or really pushing me to quit the game. I'm still enjoying the game, playing every single day. I mean, I'm getting to top 1% in Legend League. If that doesn't tell you that I'm enjoying the game, I don't know what is, but it just feels like these little things could be fixed so easily with just a little bit of development effort. It just feels like some of these things could be updated in the near future to make the game feel a whole lot better. But anyway guys, like I said before, I really am curious to hear your thoughts about your petty grievances in Asphalt Legends in the comment section down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you all later.